Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So, I apologize if I have a little bit of a raspy voice. I had a concert on Friday and I actually do sing in choir, but, and usually you're not supposed to lose your voice from singing if you do it properly. However, I had a little bit of a sore throat and I was singing and that caused me to lose a little bit of my voice. So I do apologize. I do have a little bit of a rasp, but hopefully we could get through this anyway. Nothing serious though. So if you like, today we're going to be talking about the potential for a few snowstorms, few large storms. Overall, it's going to be fairly active. Doesn't seem to be, ceasing in its activeness. It seems like the temperatures are going to warm up towards the later part of the longer range. But what comes after the warm-up, how long is it? How long lasted? Is it going to last for 10, 15 days, or is it going to last for 5, 6 days? That's still yet to be determined. Right now, we're looking at the GFS model run, and let's just take you through the temperatures first. So I'll talk about the snowstorms in just a minute. Notice that right now we're in generally a cool pattern. I would say we're going to be consistently cool, especially across the eastern U.S. till about the 20th. So this Wednesday, this Thursday, then we start seeing a ridge building across the central U.S. Again, this won't be warm in terms of short sleeves, short pants. This will be 30s, 40s, if you're lucky, some 50s. And then notice we could get a few storms, these little dips right here. However, the heat persists. The heat, in quotation marks, really, this isn't really heat. But as of winter standards, this will be fairly mild. So notice it really takes hold across Thursday from the December 19th across the U.S. and into really Monday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Then some models are trying to bring in a little bit of quote cooler air around this time frame. GFS builds in more warm air, which what the other models have been doing as well. So this may actually be 10 days of warmth, it seems, into December. So the chances for a white Christmas have decreased. And again, this isn't really predictable from far away, as white Christmas is basically just one day. So many people were asking about whether or not they'll see a white Christmas. Overall, the odds aren't too good if you're in the east. I would say they're better if for you actually if you're in the west. In the plains, northern plains, there's definitely still a chance of you seeing a white Christmas. But the further south you go, if you're usually a 50-50, you're probably not going to see one this year, or at least have a much lower chance. If you live in the west and you usually see snow, a white Christmas, you'll probably definitely see one. If you're in the northern plains, you usually see a white Christmas. You probably will see one as well. Doesn't seem to be record-breaking warmth, just a little bit of a warm-up. Notice we get again some warming patterns towards the end again, but really we haven't really seen. We see some troughs in the west and some ridging in the east, right? So that's what causes the warmth. But towards the end of the forecasting period, we really get a nice trough in the west, and this could really mean some heavy snow, lots of cold air across the west in these across this New Year's Eve time frame, around the New Year time frame, I should rather say. So within that week, what happens afterwards, that is all for a toss-up. We could be either looking at a little bit of more warmth for the next 10 days of January. That would probably be like the max, I would say. We could be looking at a more cooler pattern, not freezing, not frigid, but not warm. We could be looking at a mix, or we could be looking at, just downright brutal cold conditions. Usually when we have such a setup from ridge to trough, we usually get a pretty nice blast of cold air into the east, and it stays there for a while. We'll have to wait and see. As of now, it's a little bit too early to tell, but I would say the second half of December looks pretty warm. Again, that was a little bit uncalled for, but, that's how it happens. I called for a cold and snowy December. I basically got the first 15 days right. And the latter 15 days, just for the west, it's going to really be snowy and cold, maybe not for the east. So let's now look at some of these snow systems that could be occurring. Let's take it back to hour 006 on a GFS. Again, we have a pretty weak system across the central U.S. It becomes pretty powerful as it moves into the northeast. And again, it doesn't have to be powerful to be impactful. It will be extremely impactful, especially around this time of the year. So this really brings in a lot of precip and quite a bit of snow into the northeast. Okay, but again, the coastal areas seem to be mainly rain. We get a nice blast of cool air, lots of lake effect behind it. So those areas we'll be seeing plenty of cold air. and snow. Now let's move on into that December 20th, 21st, around the time of that warm up. Notice, I want to emphasize this: just because it's a warm pattern doesn't mean we can't see snow. Now, it's December, so the averages are pretty darn low. They usually are, for many locations, it's one of the coldest times of the year. Usually it's January for most, but December, if you're at an average of 30 and you get a warm up to 40, 10 degrees, that is a pretty big warm up, but you could definitely still see snow out of it if a system just tracks to the south and pulls in a little bit of that cold air. And you could average, 35 for that snowstorm, and you could still get plenty of snow out of that. So notice it could be a weak one right here. Their models have been kind of arguing back and forth between this one. The European, I think, shows a pretty strong storm across the northeast for this, especially across Boston. I'll show you that in just a minute. But notice a little bit of snow for the northeast, really just a giant off the coast. Not really seemingly impacting the East Coast too much. That could switch though, could change. We'll just have to wait and see. Now we're getting towards the Christmas Eve time frame. Notice it's just a warm pattern. Not much for snowstorms for the central and southern U.S. Look at the 2-meter temperature shaded. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty warm. Again, you can see the 30s, 20s. It's not warm in terms of summer heat, but it's definitely across the south. I mean, it's pleasant, 60s, 50s. So that's nice. Across the north, 35, 40. It's just gonna be miserable. But in these locations, you could definitely still see a snowstorm, or even further south if the precip if the storm brings in quite a bit of cold air, and that's what we could see. Notice we have a ridging pattern. So what that means, it was basically we could get. We usually see these storms, these panhandle lows, or they call them panhandle hookers. But I don't really like the latter part of the name, as that kind of it sounds like something else. But notice that this storm. Really, this one in this case would be here in a couple of days, but I want to explain something because panhandle lows usually bring quite a bit of snow into these parts of the country. Wherever really you may line up, as long as there's cold air, they're pretty powerful, and they could either be doing this on the bottom of a trough, so if a trough is moving out of cold air, or they could be doing this with a ridge, when the ridge is kind of doing something like this, and a panhandle low just kind of rides along that, not really being able to push further to the north. Let's see what the GFS does with that. So notice that it sends out a nice panhandle low. It develops in Oklahoma, Texas area, which is why it's called a panhandle low. It originates in the two states that are known for their panhandles, aside from Florida. And this is a pretty powerful system. Again, very far out. This will definitely change. I mean, this might not even panhandle low. But the thing is that I think this storm will occur. There has been already some consistency from the models showing this storm to be occurring. It's just a matter of, the strength and the timing and the placement, it seems. Because, this is 200 hours out, so yes, very far out. But the models have been showing this for quite a while. And notice this could bring away Christmas to Iowa, southern Wisconsin, Michigan, into parts of the northeast. So it doesn't have to necessarily, be cold for those areas. Those areas will be warm. They will be in a warm, above average temperatures for this time frame, but they could still see snow. Then we see a large system across the northeast or the southeast developing. This is very far out now, but that could also be indicative of maybe a possible nor'easter or something like of that sort. Notice we get more activity from the west, so that would indicate more precip and more storms for the central U.S. And it's usually the storms that really track to the south across these locations that really just boom into the country. You can see if the ones that travel into the Pacific Northwest, just like this, they usually don't do much. They just sit there and go into Canada or lose their energy from the high Cascade Mountains and the Rockies. Here, the elevation's a little bit lower. There's a little bit more valleys, and this storm could, kind of maintain itself. And this kind of does that right there. So in terms of snowfall, I'll just show you it for the laughs. I mean, really, it's nothing too impressive. Let's go back to the older model run, as the newest model run hasn't shown in yet. But you can see, there's potential for quite a bit of snow across the Midwest and Northeast, but overly nothing too impressive, but a few large storms may be possible. Very active Northwest and West. I want to show you now the European model and see what they're showing, and showing you what it shows for the next 10 days. Notice that doesn't do much across the north central U.S. Does a little bit across the northeast, though it has decreased amounts for Boston. earlier on in the day, they were showing a truckload of snow for the Boston area, the European was, but now you can see it has moved off. Still, though, you can see some generous amounts, 3, 4, 5 inches across the Northeast. That could, you know, happen even in a warm pattern, so that is something to mention. Notice, British Columbia will just be very, very warm. Or sorry, very active, lots of snow. And that could translate into the western U.S. In the longer range, and eventually into the central U.S. So, as I slowly begin to lose my voice even more, I'll stop talking, and I'm gonna sign out. So, thank you guys so much for watching. See you on the next episode. Bye.